Bill Ramsey, the Southend werewolf and demonic possession, a carpenter from Essex, transforms into a growling, biting creature. Police and doctors witness what psychiatry cannot explain. Southend-on-Sea lies along the Thames estuary in Essex, England, a working-class town of ordinary people leading ordinary lives. In this unremarkable setting, Bill Ramsey builds a life as a carpenter, a husband, and a father. He possesses no interest in the occult. He maintains no belief in demons or supernatural forces. He simply wants to work, provide for his family, and live peacefully. But something lives inside Bill Ramsey that will not allow him peace, something that has claimed him since childhood, something that transforms him periodically into a creature that doctors cannot diagnose and that police struggle to restrain. The first episode occurs when Bill is 9 years old. He plays in his family garden on a cold winter afternoon, engaged in the simple activities of childhood. Without warning, a sensation moves through his small body. He describes it years later as cold electricity, a wave of something alien and overwhelming that floods every nerve. The young boy walks to the wooden fence bordering the garden, his hands close around a fence post embedded in the frozen ground. He pulls. The post tears free from the earth with a force no 9-year-old child should possess. But more disturbing than the impossible strength is what follows. An urge rises within him to attack, to bite, to behave not as a human child, but as something wild and predatory. The episode passes as suddenly as it arrived. Bill stands in the garden holding the fence post, confused and frightened by what has just moved through him. His parents witness the incident. They find no explanation. They hope it represents an isolated event, perhaps a fever dream or a strange reaction to illness. It is not isolated. The episodes continue throughout Bill's adolescence and into adulthood. They arrive without warning and without apparent trigger. Bill might be at work, at home, in public spaces. The entity within him respects no boundary and follows no pattern. When an episode begins, witnesses report a transformation that defies psychiatric or medical classification. Bill drops to all fours. His posture shifts from human to animal. Growls emerge from his throat, not the sounds of a man imitating a wolf, but deep, guttural animal vocalizations that seem to come from something using his vocal cords rather than from Bill himself. His hands reach and grab with intent to harm. His teeth become weapons. He bites anyone who comes near him. Multiple witnesses across multiple episodes report the same detail independently. His eyes change. They describe the shift not as a physical alteration in color or structure, but as something fundamental, as though the consciousness looking out through Bill Ramsey's eyes becomes something inhuman. The strength Bill demonstrates during episodes requires multiple police officers to subdue him. A carpenter of average build becomes something that grown men struggle to restrain. Officers respond to calls about Bill Ramsey multiple times across the years. They document the episodes in police reports. They describe a man who transforms before their eyes into something that growls and bites and fights with animal ferocity. Medical staff at hospitals where Bill is taken following episodes add their observations to the growing file of documented incidents. They examine him. They find no physical abnormality. They discover no neurological condition that explains the transformation. Psychiatrists interview Bill extensively during periods when he presents as completely normal, a rational, articulate, deeply ashamed man who cannot understand what happens to him. The psychiatric evaluations yield no diagnosis. Bill demonstrates no symptoms of schizophrenia. He shows no signs of dissociative identity disorder. He maintains full memory of the episodes and expresses genuine horror at his own actions during them. The animal behaviors, the growling, the posture on all fours, the biting, do not fit established psychological frameworks. The physical strength witnesses document during episodes cannot be explained by adrenaline alone. The consistency of witness descriptions across decades, from police officers to medical staff to family members, rules out mass delusion or fabrication. Bill Ramsey remains a medical mystery, a man periodically possessed by something that turns him into a creature that should not exist outside of folklore. Bill lives in constant fear between episodes. He loves his wife and children. He works steadily as a carpenter. He wants nothing more than to live a normal life, but he cannot predict when the next episode will strike. He cannot control what emerges from within him. The entity demonstrates a particular cruelty in its timing. It surfaces during moments of normalcy, during family gatherings, during quiet evenings, shattering peace and replacing it with terror. Bill's family watches the man they love transform into something that frightens them. His children witness their father dropping to all fours and growling like a beast. His wife endures decades of uncertainty, never knowing when the next attack will come. Bill himself carries the deepest burden, the knowledge that something uses his body as a vessel for violence, that he hurts people he loves, that no doctor or medication or therapy can stop what happens to him. News of Bill Ramsey's case travels through networks of researchers investigating paranormal phenomena. The documentation of his episodes, police reports, hospital records, witness statements accumulated across 3 decades marks his case as extraordinary. Reports reach Ed and Lorraine Warren, the demonologists from Connecticut, who have investigated claims of supernatural activity across multiple continents. They recognize in Bill Ramsey's documented history something rare and deeply significant. Ed and Lorraine travel to England specifically to meet him. Lorraine Warren sits across from Bill Ramsey and immediately senses what she describes as a dark spiritual presence attached to him. Her clairvoyant abilities, developed across decades of paranormal investigation, allow her to perceive entities that others cannot see. She reports that the presence attached to Bill has been with him since early childhood, that it uses him as a vessel for brief but violent manifestations, and that it demonstrates characteristics consistent with demonic oppression rather than full possession. Ed Warren examines the documentation of Bill's episodes, the police reports, the medical evaluations, the consistent witness testimony. He applies his knowledge of demonology, drawing on historical accounts of possession cases documented in church records across centuries. Ed discovers precedent for Bill Ramsey's condition in medieval European accounts of demonic possession that expressed through animal behaviors. Church records document cases where possessed individuals demonstrated animal characteristics, growling, biting, moving on all fours, displaying inhuman strength. These historical cases were often described as lycanthropy, the delusion of being a wolf, but Ed recognizes them as manifestations of demonic entities that expressed through animal mimicry. Bill Ramsey's case represents the most thoroughly documented modern example of this rare form of oppression. The accumulation of independent witness testimony from police, medical professionals, and family members across 30 years provides evidence that cannot be dismissed as folklore or medieval superstition. The danger Bill represents extends beyond the theoretical realm of paranormal investigation. He has injured people during episodes. Officers have been bitten. Family members have been frightened and traumatized. Bill himself has been hospitalized multiple times, restrained, treated as a psychiatric patient, despite the failure of psychiatry to diagnose or treat his condition. The entity using him has demonstrated across 3 decades that it will not depart voluntarily. Medication provides no relief. Psychiatric interventions address symptoms that do not fit known conditions. The episodes continue with the same violent animal characteristics, the same inhuman strength, the same transformation that witnesses struggle to describe because it exists outside their framework of normal human behavior. Ed and Lorraine Warren arrange for an exorcism to be performed on Bill Ramsey. They contact Bishop Robert McKenna, a traditionalist Catholic bishop who has performed exorcisms on previous cases the Warrens have investigated, including the Smurl family haunting in Pennsylvania. Bishop McKenna agrees to conduct the ritual. The exorcism follows traditional Catholic rites, with the bishop commanding the entity to depart in the name of God, invoking the authority of Christ over demonic forces, employing specific prayers that address the nature of the oppression afflicting Bill. During the exorcism, Bill reports that the familiar sensation begins, the cold wave moving through his body, the animal urge starting to rise, the feeling that something else is about to emerge and take control. Bishop McKenna continues the prayers. The ritual proceeds with the solemnity and spiritual authority that the Catholic Church brings to confrontations with demonic entities. Then something shifts within Bill. He describes it years later as a weight being lifted, a presence that had resided within him for so long that he had stopped noticing its constant pressure suddenly departing. The cold wave recedes, the animal urge dissolves. The entity that has used his body as a vessel for 30 years releases its hold. In the years following the exorcism performed by Bishop McKenna, Bill Ramsey reports no further episodes. The transformation that terrorized him and those around him does not return. The growling stops. The animal posture ceases. The inhuman strength that required multiple officers to restrain disappears. Bill lives the normal life he has always wanted, working as a carpenter, spending time with his family, existing without the constant fear that something will emerge from within him and turn him into a creature that should not exist. The Warren investigation of Bill Ramsey's case results in the book Werewolf, a true story of demonic possession, published in 1991. The book documents the 30-year history of Bill's episodes, the medical and psychiatric evaluations that found no explanation, the police reports that corroborated witness accounts of his transformations, and the successful exorcism that ended the manifestations. Bill Ramsey's case provides one of the most compelling modern examples of demonic possession, expressing through physical, observable, repeated manifestations, documented by multiple independent witnesses across 3 decades. The fact that Bill is an ordinary working man with no history of fabrication, no desire for attention, and no belief in the supernatural before his experiences makes the accumulated evidence particularly difficult to dismiss. Ed Warren states in interviews following the case that Bill Ramsey represents one of the examples he considers when people ask whether demonic possession is real. Bill spent 30 years consulting doctors, psychiatrists, and medical professionals seeking an explanation within the framework of conventional medicine and psychology. Every expert he consulted acknowledged the reality of his episodes. The documentation was too extensive and the witnesses too credible to dismiss, but none could provide a diagnosis or treatment that addressed the transformation witnesses observed. Only when the case was approached as a spiritual affliction, only when the entity was addressed as a demonic presence rather than a medical condition, did Bill Ramsey find relief from the creature that had lived within him since childhood. The Southend werewolf case stands in the archives of paranormal investigation as evidence that demonic oppression can manifest in forms more specific and more disturbing than the levitations and speaking in tongues depicted in popular culture. Bill Ramsey's transformation into something animal, something that growled and bit and moved on all fours, demonstrates that entities can express through human vessels in ways that defy medical classification and that challenge fundamental assumptions about the limits of human behavior. The 30 years of documented episodes before the exorcism and the complete cessation of manifestations following it provide a clear timeline that separates the period of oppression from the period of freedom. Bill Ramsey survives his ordeal and lives to tell his story, a quiet carpenter from Essex who carried something dark within him for most of his life, and who finally found peace when that darkness was commanded to depart. If you found this case compelling, subscribe to Vanishing Roads for more documented paranormal investigations from around the world. This story was created with AI assistance based on documented case files. All events reference real investigations and reported incidents.